Hello, welcome to Pixelated Podcast. We have Peter here today and super excited to talk to him. So he is a junior designer. He's recently gone through kind of all of the things that junior designers have gone through, and now he's here to kind of tell his story and how he's doing it and being a product designer and full-time gig and all of the things that go with it. So really excited to have you on the podcast today, Peter. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Diane, for having me today. I'm super excited to talk about my journey and how I can potentially help other junior designers who are also in the same boat as I am.
Love it, love it. So perfect. So let's kind of start off with hearing kind of your background. Where did you come from? Maybe where you were before you kind of entered the design space. And then let's kind of dive into everything. Tell me your full story to how you got to today. And then we'll kind of go back through and dive deeper into some of those key places.
Yeah, so before I was a UX product designer, I studied computer science and IT during my college years at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, or UMBC. And I graduated when everything was still on fire. If you know, you know. I dreaded going to class every day because I didn't really love what I was doing. And knowing myself, if I didn't love what I was doing, I was going to be terrible at it, especially if I actually landed a job that I didn't like. So, I mean, before I even heard of UX design, I knew that I wanted to make a direct impact on people. The hard part was just discovering the medium that was right for me. Though with IT, I didn't feel like it allowed me to achieve my goals or fulfill my creative passion. I needed to find a space that had a deeper purpose on why I do things for others. So fast forward to the last year of my of college, I was talking to a close friend of mine who was studying UX design at the time, and they were they told me about all the cool things that they were learning and how designers can make a strong impact through the power of UX design. And it sounded like a pretty neat field to be in. It was also relatively new at the time, so the growth potential was there. But I didn't really know too much about it, so I decided to join a design hackathon to see what it was all about. And I got to meet a bunch of designers from all over the world with all different types of backgrounds and skill levels. And I got to learn about people's goals, their motivations, and listen to their personal stories. And I learned how some of them were actually career changers and they were all willing to start all over again just to do this thing called UX design. And for most of the people that I met there, I saw this passion in their eyes, and to make a difference through design, and that ignited a fire in my eyes as well. So immediately after I graduated, I said to myself, I'm dropping everything to teach myself UX design. So I jumped into the UX world without knowing whether or not I'd be successful, not working any other job, nothing else lined up. It was one of the biggest risks I've ever taken, yet it turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made, as you can tell, because I'm on the Pixelated Podcast right now with the one and only Diane. Yeah. So I'm currently working as an interaction designer at a design agency based in New York called Code and Theory, and I work remotely based in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Love it, love it, love it. I love like that you knew that in your senior year that you didn't have that passion and that spark, and you kind of talked a little bit about having a direct impact on people and how that was so important to you. And I'm just curious, like, where did that come from? Like, as you kind of chose computer science and IT, like, was that something that you were passionate about at some point and that you thought you would have an impact? And as you got deeper, is that kind of where it switched? Or was there something where it was like, oh, you know what? I actually found my real calling is helping people. What was that discovery? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I did have a sort of passion for computer science as well, initially. And as I went through it, it was just, I mean, it just didn't feel like the right medium for me. Like I needed to find something that really fit me, and this just wasn't it because I had to rewire my brain to kind of think a certain way, and it's just like, creating something new out of there's just nothing. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, so I mean, I was struggling to find a new medium, and it's just nothing really came up, and so I talked to my friend, and that's that was a game changer.
Game changer.
They literally just changed my life there.
That's amazing. Does this person know how much of an impact? Do they know you're now in the UX space?
Yes, they do. And I make sure to tell them, like, I'm doing well in this field, all thanks to them. And yeah, shout out to Glow.
I love that. No, that's awesome. Okay, I want to talk about this hackathon. Like, I think that a lot of people that are interested in UX design, especially like career changes, like I heard this, it feels like it would be a great fit. They don't really know how to test the waters or how to dive deeper. So, how did you find the hackathon?
Oh yeah, so the friend that I talked to you about, she went to the University of Washington, and University of Washington had a design hackathon called the Protothon, and this was in 2020, and I just blindly applied and wanted to participate, and yeah, I got to meet so many different people. I knew no one, uh, and I just came in there blindly. I just wanted to learn about this field. I didn't care if we won or anything. It was just like I'm here to meet people and learn about what they do, and yeah, just see if this is right for me. And it ended up being the right choice for me. So
Yeah. I mean, I love hackathons. I think it's like such a great way to bring a bunch of people together to tackle like a problem and to dive deeper and like do something for real. It's like a real case study. It's like a real thing you're building,
mhm.
versus maybe in some classes you learn techniques, but you're like actually doing it, and that's why I think it's so impactful. What was the project that you worked on for the hackathon?
Yeah, so this was during COVID time, so obviously we had to make a COVID app, and it was for tablets. It was for tablet, and I worked on a team with about 5 other people, 4 or 5 other people, throughout the entire U.S. region, and yeah, it was kind of rough because I had no idea what I was doing, and I mean, the project itself wasn't the greatest, but I learned a lot and got to meet a lot of people, and you know, some of the people I still keep in contact with, so that's great as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the COVID app, I feel like we've
Yeah,
all gone through that stage. So
yeah.
no, I totally get it. What were you using like Figma, like for someone that hadn't really had any experience and this was kind of your first experience? Were you just like thrown into some programs and
I knew that Figma was one of the tools that designers use, so I did play around with it before I jumped into the hackathon. Um, I do have some experience with like Photoshop and other tools as well. Um, that's kind of where I have my informal visual design background, messing around in the cracked versions of Photoshop as a hobby, putting my friends' faces on weird objects, that kind of thing.
yes.
Yeah, all very informal, but I have been exposed to these tools for quite a while.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I feel like that would be something where it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And
Yeah.
kind of thrown into a whirlwind. Um, No, that's great. I mean, for people that are looking to test the waters, do you think a hack like is there any other ideas you have or anything else that you've done that you would suggest to kind of people looking to make that career change to see if they love what UX is?
Yeah, I think a hackathon is probably the best way. Other than that, there's Google, but I mean, hearing it from other people directly who are also trying to career change, or if they've already career changed and are just trying to better their skills, it's a great environment to be in, and just learn about this field.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
agree. I think a hackathon, I love hackathons. I
yeah,
highly encourage everyone, no matter what level of design, I think it always is like it just inspires and makes you think differently, and you get to work with new people. I think it's just like a great reset for any level
Yeah.
you are in product design. Um, so you did this hackathon, and it basically you were like, I'm in. So you dropped everything. You started to dive deeper into UX. What was that process? What did you do to kind of learn that skill set and to feel confident in gaining that knowledge of product design?
Yeah. So let's talk about boot camps. Boot camps versus the self-taught route. And I'm pretty sure there's other routes as well. But um, I mean, nowadays there's so many boot camps. So you might be wondering, oh, there's so many UX boot camps out there. Why didn't you just enroll in one and make your life easier? Um, so I ended up going the self-taught route, and for personal reasons, um, I feel like it just wasn't for me. Boot camps just weren't for me. There are some pros to boot camps. Boot camps are less time consuming and a faster way to learn the basics of UX at the price of a kidney or 1,500 McChickens pre-inflation. Depends on what your priorities are. And
Love it, yes.
and I also knew at that I did a lot of research on boot camps before I decided to go the self-taught route, but I learned that not all employers see boot camps as a sufficient level of training to land a real life job in UX. And a lot of junior UX designers I see nowadays go around thinking that a boot camp is all they need in order to get a job, but that's the furthest from the truth. From my observations, they only seem to teach how to land a first job, but nothing to help navigate the world and become a successful designer after you've landed the first job. And so that's one of the reasons why. Um, but boot camps, yeah, they're fine for people who like and need the structure to learn effectively. That just wasn't the case for me. Um, Also, one of the main reasons was that it reminded me too much of school and how it's structured. I never really did super great in school because I learned things differently from others. So I decided it was time for me to learn UX my way, what materials to learn, where to learn it, and who else I can learn from. Yeah. So self-taught route sounds pretty nice, right? Well, it was really tough though, and I often self-reflected and asked myself, where should I even start? Like, what do I read? Like articles, books? Which one? How many? Um, do I just read 100 Medium articles a day and become a UX genius, or do I read the design of everyday things 100 times? Um,
Yes.
and there were other thoughts that I had, like I'm feeling really lonely in this journey. I don't even know if people know what UX design is. I don't know anyone who else is in the same position as I am. Am I really gonna go through this alone? And I'm gonna be transparent here. I went through some mental health stuff following personal events, and it kept me stagnant for a good while, to be honest. But without those dark times, I wouldn't have been in the position that I am in today because it pushed me to work 10 times as hard, even though I gave quite a bit of unhealthy amount of time and effort into doing that stuff. Definitely crossed a lot of unhealthy boundaries. But yeah, as time went on, I started to discover UX design Discord servers and Slack groups, um, ADP lists, and other free resources that helps me throughout my journey. I like to view these as like buffs or like weaponry that I need in my toolkit to reach the next level in a video game. Yeah, and so eventually I discovered what worked for me and how I learned through just trial and error. I just started working on new case studies and tried to learn something new from every project. Um, I I basically learned by doing, being very hands-on, looking things up and learning as I go whenever I encountered a problem or something new. Um, And reading Medium articles and UX books for 8 hours a day wasn't gonna help me become a great UX designer. Trust me, I tried this and I suffered. um, the thing that helped me was just doing projects, just reaching out to my mentors, asking for feedback, learning from my mistakes, and iterating is what's gonna help me become a great UX designer. And I definitely struggled really hard, but I learned invaluable skills that I would have never learned at a boot camp from my peers and mentors.
Yeah, that was a lot in a very well said way. And I think there are a lot of people that are trying to figure out if self-taught or boot camp is, and I think you touched on a lot of really important points that a lot of people can listen to this podcast and like try to make that decision for themselves. And hearing more about like self-taught, like how you got started and like what resources you used. And I felt a connection with what you said about like how you learn, and like you don't necessarily learn the traditional way and you're worried that boot camp was going to feel like school. And I definitely am like a very visual learner, and I like to do the same way as you. And I definitely could see why boot camp would not be able to meet that, because you're just checking off those boxes, saying you did it. So I can definitely relate to that need of like trial and error, and not necessarily reading the same books or reading a bunch of articles, but actually going in and trying to figure it out and reading about that specific thing that you can't figure out. And that's how you're going to learn, and you're going to keep iterating and keep doing and doing and doing. And it's a ton of work. It's super stressful and hard, but like it's so rewarding when it's like you actually are creating something and learning and building something, and you like have something that you've done that you're proud of. So I think that's amazing. For the case studies that you did create on your own while you were self-taught, like have you gone back to them and like looked at them now in hindsight and seen like what you could be doing better? Or are you sitting there and like judging the work that you did?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Like the very first case study on my portfolio um, is actually the one that I worked on with the friend that I told you about earlier. So we both worked on this one case study, and it took a while. It took a while. It wasn't supposed to take this long, but it took a while because it was both of our first time making a case study. And so I learned a lot about um, like scope creep. Scope creep is one of them. Learning to collaborate with other designers, and yeah, just overall time management, because not every project is gonna be um, as time relaxing as a case study that I just created. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
that's great. And it sounds like a lot of these things you learned in these early case studies you can apply to today. Like
yeah,
scope creep is a real thing. It happens all the time. Managing time, like that's kind of what I wanted to ask next is like, what do you recommend for kind of junior designers to learn about project management and other things? Because design is one thing, right? Design is super important. Obviously, if you want to be a designer, you need to design. But there's all these other parts of design. So there's like project management, understanding, working, collaborating, all of these other things. Do you have any tools or ideas or ways that you would suggest for people to learn these skills? Is it case studies? Is it coming up with your own case studies? What would you suggest?
I think the best way to approach this is to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. And so the resource that I talked about earlier was ADP list, and there's a lot of different people on there. There's designers, there's engineers, there's product managers, you name it, right? And so a couple months back, I actually reached out to a couple engineers and product managers just to learn about what they do and how they communicate with product designers, and how they can make my job better and how I can help them. And so,
Amazing.
yeah, having that, just learning about what each other's jobs are and what we do is the most important thing. Um, and yeah, I think just learning from someone like that firsthand is really going to be the best way.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think ADP list is amazing. highly suggest for anyone to kind of research, and it's a great resource to find people in the industry or project managers or anyone, and understanding kind of how you can relate to them. So yeah, I think that's a great tip for people. So how long were you kind of studying and self-teaching before you felt confident to kind of get to that next stage? And what was that next stage for you?
Yeah, so I spent about very close to a year working on my portfolio alone, and during that time I was still working on my case studies and um, still learning about the basics and all that stuff. And I got to a point where I talked to all my mentors and met up with a bunch of people on ADP list, and they just had nothing else to say or critique about my case study or my case studies and my portfolio in general. And they're just like, just go apply. Like,
They're like, you're ready.
yeah,
Spread
you're
your
ready.
wings.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that's probably one of the the times where I had like a green light. I was like, okay, yeah, if this many people are saying, okay, my case studies are good enough so that I can go out and apply for jobs, then yeah, I'm gonna do it. And so I applied to a bunch of different jobs, and I um, got more confident at networking as well. I started to work on networking, and I made a bunch of meaningful connections, and even consider some of the people that I met on LinkedIn my close friends. And that's kind of where I met my mentor and friend Elena. That's where she jumps into the picture. If you haven't watched episode 4 of the Pixelated Podcast with Elena Haskins, do that after watching this one. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Love that.
yeah.
Elena's
And
amazing. Yes. Tell me more. Tell me more.
yeah, so how I met Elena, I met her by applying for a job she posted on LinkedIn, which I ended up getting, by the way. And I got to work with her and another super talented UX designer, and now friend of mine, Olivia. She's absolutely amazing. We worked on a passion project of Elena's called Converge, which is a website guide that helps recent college grads navigate through life after college. And we worked on revamping the information architecture, UX strategy, and content organization of the site. Um, and I got to learn so much from Elena and Olivia on how to work as a team, problem solving, design thinking, and overall, I just had one of the best times of my career, like doing what I love and being around the people who see value in me. And I finally felt like I wasn't alone in my UX journey anymore, and I feel extremely grateful for Elena for giving me a chance and seeing my value as a UX designer.
Oh, that was so sweet. I love that. I think that it's designing is not a solo position. I think that when you design with other designers, that's really where you grow. You get to bounce ideas, you get to hear other people's, you get to collaborate and come up with something even better. And I think that it sounds like that was such an important milestone because you'd been doing self-taught. You were kind of occasionally working with a friend on a case study, but you felt like you were like alone in this journey, and you were able to kind of like see what it was like to actually take everything you learned and applied it and learn and grow with other people. And I think that's like so impactful. And for anyone listening, like product design is very much a collaborative effort, and like that's something that's gonna just being open to that is just gonna open so many doors for you. So I think that's amazing, and I love that like you have this relationship with Elena and Olivia, and like how you feel like they've really helped you kind of grow. I can feel that, and that's like so amazing to feel like you have those connections with other designers. And you got to work on like this really cool project too, right? Like Converge is super interesting, and it's probably fresh to you because you were recently a college grad, so you knew what that process was like.
Yes, definitely.
That's amazing. I love that. So where we are is you were working with Elena, and you're doing converge and a project like that.
Yep.
And then what happened next? Where was your next step?
At the same time, as I was working with Elena and Olivia, I was a product designer at a Web3 startup that was in the process of creating a platform where anyone could easily invest in digital real estate in the metaverse, which is a very abstract thing. I had really no idea what I was getting myself into, but I thought of it as like a very interesting learning opportunity. So I
Yes.
took it, and yeah, I learned a lot from the people that were in the startup, and yeah, made even more meaningful connections. Uh,
Yeah.
I also worked at a B2B kiosk screen design company, um, working with businesses, mainly restaurants like Popeyes, McDonald's, and smaller cafes, to run their POS or point of sale systems effectively. So, yeah, I,
So you
I
were you freelancing at these gigs at the same time? So you were kind of working on all of these projects.
yeah, yeah,
So what was that like? How was that juggling? Because these projects are all very different.
yeah. It was really hard to juggle. I felt like I didn't have enough time in my day to do all of these things, and I was just hoping to get a full-time job so I just didn't have to juggle as many things. That was my main goal.
Got it.
Um, yeah, and so
Was there one of those projects that like stood out to you, like that you really enjoyed, and what was it that you enjoyed about it?
um, I think the Web3 startup was very interesting because um, it didn't really go too well. It ended up like not working out, but I got to meet senior product designers as well, and I'm still a junior, so I got to learn so much about how startups work and doing value proposition workshops and business model kind of stuff. So I learned a lot of things that were not product design in that startup. And yeah, I learned a lot about the Web3 space as well, and like it's like how it's growing, how it's the future, and I see its potential. And so I can finally say that I've dipped my toes into kind of like a new territory.
Yeah. No, I think that's powerful. I think it's like also staying up on trends and knowing where design's going. And
Yeah,
I think what I love about Web3 in that space is it's like uncharted territory. So there's like so many lessons learned and so many ways to like approach it, which
yeah,
is really, really cool and fun for a designer.
yeah. Elena also started a UX mentorship program under her design studio called Anale, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of her first cohort. And I gained so many new and invaluable skills that no one would have ever taught me anywhere. And I learned how to be more confident in myself and how I talked about my work, how to establish my personal branding and tell a more compelling story of my UX journey and my upbringings. Gained a whole network of people to support me on my journey, and those people telling me to never give up, and despite actively job searching for a year and a half actually. So now I work alongside with Elena at this mentorship program to help her with planning, logistics, and mentoring other junior UX designers. And I just wanted to give back to the community and yeah, to the place that helps me to get where I am today.
Amazing. Yeah. What is mentorship to you? Like, it sounds like that's something that you're passionate about. You said you're giving back, but it feels like more too. It feels like something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, I just really want to help people who have been in the same shoes as I have. I know it's super hard to find a UX job nowadays, especially with all the oversaturation of the market and all that stuff. And so I really empathize with all the junior UX designers right now, and I just want to help as many people as I can to kind of make that process a little bit easier, so that we can have a lot more talented UX designers in the field.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think that I mean, these influx of junior designers and a lot of people graduating boot camps, and we talked a lot about boot camp, self taught, and like I think they come out of these boot camps with expectations that are not reality, and so I think a lot of people get stuck and burnt out, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to get this job. So I think that's like really amazing that you're able to kind of go in and help empathize and help these people understand how they could maybe rethink some things, kind of like what you learned with Elena. You're able to kind of pass on that knowledge and give people that confidence and how to stand out, and just how it kind of trickulates into everything that they do moving forward.
Yeah. And these types of things that I learned from the mentorship program got me so many more interviews. And I've never felt more confident in my UX career. And yeah, I was just killing it in the interviews, getting final. Even though it took a while, but like I feel very confident in how I talk about myself, and like I know my self-worth. And so that's really what I want to get across to people, to know your self-worth, and that you're not a bad designer. It's just that, sometimes luck isn't on our side, sometimes due to the market stuff, but like no, you're just, you're an amazing designer. And yeah, I can't say anything else other than that.
Yeah, I mean, to everyone, you guys are all amazing designers. You just need to, luck is a huge part of it, and understanding how to stand out and how to feel confident and how to differentiate yourselves in those interviews totally is super important. And I think that's an amazing skill to have. And I
Yep.
know Elena has that skill. I interviewed her, I hired her, and I know that she can pass on some amazing knowledge.
Yep.
Based on like everything that she's kind of learned. So yes, I completely understand and agree with that.
Yep.
So tell me about kind of this last stage of, you have a full-time gig right now. So what was that? What was that interview? What was that process? And how did it feel to kind of get this job?
Yeah, so it was an interesting story. So before I got this full-time job, I actually landed an internship at another place. And 2 weeks, about 2 weeks before I was actually about to start at that internship, they laid off a lot of the people at the company. And so I ended up not getting the internship. And I made a LinkedIn post about it. And one of the recruiters at Code in Theory saw my LinkedIn post, and they were like, "Hey, let me get you into an interview right now." And I told them, "Well, I'm interviewing at all these other places as well. I'm in final rounds, and if we don't do it now, then I don't think we can do it." And he was like, "Okay, let's do it, rapid fire." So um, the next few days, I landed interviews with the director and senior designers, and yeah, passed everything. I did really well, and yeah, that's how I landed the position.
It's like, I mean, it's not serendipitous, but it kind of is. It's like you were searching for this full-time job, you did all of this, and then like it's interesting that this LinkedIn post kind of took you to that level. That's really interesting. And I think that's also like for everyone else, like we were just talking about, like there's so many other ways to kind of get jobs. Maybe it's not just applying, maybe it is other ways of doing it. And that's like such an amazing story that's like what happened. So you went through the rounds, everything was good, and they're like, yes, like you're it. We
Yep,
want you.
yep. And that's where I am today. And I couldn't be any happier. I love the people at my company. They're amazing people. Very hardworking and very smart, and I can learn so much from my coworkers. And so very grateful to have them.
That's amazing. So what's next for you? You have full-time gig, you're super happy. Where do you want to be in the next year, the next 2 years?
Yeah, so I definitely want to be working for in-house, because right now I'm at an agency right now, and one of the reasons why I decided to join an agency was to um, exponentially grow my career. in a short amount of time. So I would be working on a bunch of different projects with a bunch of different clients, and I would be able to grow really fast. And I think after I think I've grown enough to the point where I can move on to the next level, I definitely want to be working in-house, specifically on B2C projects, B2C companies, because that's kind of why I became a UX designer. I wanted to directly impact people, and so this is the chance where I get to do that. And yeah, that's the reason why.
And yeah, that's what's next, and that's gonna happen. I know it is, and that's exciting. I think it is really great, and I think becoming a great designer is being well-rounded and having worked in so many different fields and kind of having all that under your belt. And it sounds like you are definitely on your way. All of the different spaces that you've worked in and kind of where you see yourself going. It sounds like you're just trying to get as much knowledge as possible and grow and learn and kind of find that sweet spot of where, after all of this exploration, where you find the best fit for you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think it's going to be really impactful to a lot of junior designers that are in a similar place that you were when you started. And hopefully they can take some of these tips and tricks that you've kind of mentioned along the way and be able to kind of grow and get to the next stage in their design journey. So I really, really appreciate you chatting with me and kind of walking through your story, and I'm really excited to follow along and see like where you go and where the design career takes you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
Of course. Thanks, Peter. We'll chat soon.
All right, chat soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.